Hey kids, Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. Now, I've been lucky enough to be riding for the last few days the 2020 KTM 390 Adventure, a brand new bike for this year. I've been riding it for a while, I've been riding it in all sorts of conditions, on all sorts of roads, even a bit of off-road, and I think I've got to know the bike reasonably well. So if you're interested in this machine, stick around, stay tuned, I'll tell you the lessons I've learned. Okay, so here she is then, the 390 Adventure, a bike that KTM has been teasing us with for years. They brought the Duke 390, which this bike is based on, about 7 years ago, I think we first heard about that. It was mooted then that there might be an adventure version of the bike coming, and it's taken all this time until we've actually got to see it. So I was really keen to have a go on this. I'm a big fan of lightweight, lower capacity bikes. I really like the 390 Duke. That's one of my favourite KTMs. In fact, it's in my top 3 KTMs. So as I say, I was really interested to ride this one. So I have ridden it quite a bit over the last few days, as I say. I've done about a few hundred miles on it in all sorts of conditions, on all sorts of roads, just got to know the bike a little bit better than you would if, say, you just had a 1 hour test ride. So in this video, I'm going to take you through all the lessons I've learned, not just the positive points, which there are many on this bike, but also the negatives as well. So stick around, stay tuned. Let's go through the pros and cons. Okay, so shall we start with the negative points on the bike then, get those out of the way. Nobody likes a whinger, so let's get through those quickly. There are a few things that have cropped up that I don't like about the bike, and these are in no particular order. I've made notes as ever, so I don't miss anything. First thing I've said here, I hate the mirrors. Now, the mirrors work absolutely fine. There's no terrible vibration or anything like that when you look in them. They're perfectly clear. But what I don't like are these rubber gaiter things that come on them. Now, these mirrors are used on all sorts of KTMs, but goodness knows what they're thinking of here, because these things just look awful. In a previous video, I said that KTM should fire the person that designed them. I hope they didn't, but anyway, come up with some different mirrors. That would be good, KTM. So that's the first thing. Minor point, but it's just irritating because, of course, you're looking at them all the time. All right, next point I've said here, you look at a lot of plastic when you're riding it, and what I mean by that is the front here. When you're looking down here, as you can see, there's an awful lot of plastic going on. I mean, it is what it is. It has to have plastic, but it's just not particularly aesthetically pleasing, I don't think. Now, there aren't that many bikes that do that aesthetically pleasing, but in this case, it's just something that once I became aware of it, it started to annoy me, so that's another point. Next up, sound from the exhaust is rather disappointing. It is a single cylinder machine, a thumper, but it's very muted sound on this. If I jump off it, I'll show you the exhaust itself. Here we go. It's a funny looking little unit. There we are. And yeah, it just sounds rubbish. I mean, look at the size of the exit on there. Presumably it's been strangled because of Euro 5. There's the massive great catalytic converter or whatever it is underneath there. And yeah, it's just disappointing the way the bike sounds. You know, for me, part of riding a bike, part of the joy is the sound that it makes, and this one makes a horrible sound. Oh, next up, the seat. Now, I'm always complaining about KTM seats, and this bike is no different. This seat here is particularly hard. It looks like it's quite well padded, but it's not overly comfortable. And I found after I rode it for about an hour when I picked it up from KTM. Afterwards, I did have a bit of bum trauma. I think if there is an aftermarket option, or if you can do something like put one of those sheepskin things on it or whatever, then that might be something worth considering if you can go for one of these bikes. All right, next up, back to the list. Let's come around this side for this one. Okay, next up, I want to talk about the gearbox, because this one has got a quick shifter fitted, which I think is an option down here, and it works in the main really, really well. But there is an issue with the gearbox that I found. It might just be me, maybe not doing things right, but I found that this has jumped out into neutral on more than one occasion for me, which is a bit annoying. It happened to me when I was doing a bit of off-roading, and it's happened to me on the road as well. So I think you've got to be pretty positive if you're going to be using the quick shifter. That's probably my error, but it does, as I say, it has jumped out into neutral a few times, and that's not a good thing. Okay, back on the bike. And whilst on the subject of gears, I have found that it's really quite difficult to find neutral on this bike as well. Now, given this bike may be bought by new riders, it is a bit of a faff trying to find neutral when you come to a stop. It's easier if you let the bike roll and find neutral before you actually stop. But every time I've stopped on this bike, I've had to fiddle around trying to get neutral. A lot of bikes are like that. This one is quite tricky. Okay, and last but not least on my gripes of this bike is that these handlebars I do find pretty damn tingly. Now, it is a single cylinder bike, of course they're going to be vibrations. If you don't like vibrations, don't buy a motorcycle, you could say. But again, after a long ride, I did find that I had pins and needles terribly in my hands. Now, it only happened to me on one occasion. It might have been that particular day, but it's something to check out if you're a bit prone to that. On the other hand, it's possibly fixable by putting on something like grip puppies. Now, I use these on my BMW. I've got a spare set here. These things, which are quite good. You could stick those on these handlebars and you could probably get rid of the vibrations that way. But anyway, that's it for the list of negatives. Okay, let's be a little bit more positive, shall we? So, what about the bike do I particularly like? Well, the first thing is to do with the way it looks. I mean, I just think it's a cute-looking bike anyway. But it actually, given it's a relatively small capacity bike, I think it's got some pretty good road presence. Partly helped by the waspy light on the front, but it seems quite a sizable machine. Again, the big front wheel as well helps with its road presence. But I do think that's a great thing about this bike. When you're riding on it, you sit very much on top of it. You've got a high view, or it feels like you have, and you feel like the king of the road. So, great road presence on this. Okay, next on my list of positives is the TFT on this machine. Let me just show it to you. I'll start her up. And it's the classic KTM TFT that we've seen on lots of KTMs, but it's just nice. I mean, it just works. It's got everything that you need, and it's kind of intuitive to use. So you just hit the set button to go into the various menus. You go up and down on the buttons to select whatever you want, and then you hit set again to go into whatever. And if you want to change, say, the ABS, say, or whatever, or the traction control, hit set again, change it, and bingo bongo, you're off. And it's all done via the switchgear here, which just works, which is lit as well, this switchgear, which is a great thing. You know, not that many bike manufacturers do lit switchgear now, which is a good thing. And also these buttons and the set and escape thing just works on this. It's really intuitive. So I do like the TFT on here. It's clear, it's obvious what it does, and it's easy to operate. So thumbs up for that. And while we're on the subject of the TFT and electronics generally, this bike has what I would regard as just the right level of electronics. It's got what you need and nothing else. So it's got Bosch, I think it's lean angle sensitive ABS and traction control, and it's got LED lights all round, and that is about it. Now for me, that's enough electronics. I don't need riding modes, I don't need anti-wheelie control and all that stuff, certainly not the bike like this anyway, and I certainly don't need keyless ignition and stuff. So this has the good bits of the electronics that are around these days and no more besides. So I absolutely love that about the bike. So thumbs up for getting that right. Okay, next thing on my list, I complained earlier about the hard seat on the bike, but linked to that is actually the comfort on the machine, and actually the riding position on this bike is really, really nice. If I remember, I'll take a little shot so you can see me actually sat on it. Now, my feet are on tiptoes, but because the bike is so light, it never feels intimidating. It's very, very easy to control when you come to a stop. And the nice wide handlebars, the way you sit upright, the whole thing is just a really comfortable place to be if you ignore the numb bum aspect. But the actual position itself is really, really nice. Next up, and very important point in this for any motorcycle of course, is the engine on this bike. I absolutely love it. It's really punchy. You never feel like you've got a lack of power. Given it is an A2 license friendly machine, you've got plenty of power for the road. It'll hold 90 miles per hour on the motorway, no problem at all. Don't ask me how I know. And it's ample for off-road as well. I absolutely love this engine. It's a fabulous little unit, the same as in the Duke 390 that I like so much. It hasn't lost any of its zippy character. I really love that about the bike. One of the absolute top things that I've grown to love about this bike during the period that I've been riding it is its lightweight. It's a very light bike. I think it's like 158 kilograms, which does put it in as one of the lightest bikes that I've actually ridden, but it feels light when you're riding it, which translates to great handling as well. And for me, getting on in years and with dodgy arthritis in my shoulders and stuff, actually having a light bike is quite an important thing, because it means I can move it around the garage very, very easily. So living with this because of its lightweight would be a great thing. So thumbs up on the weight of this bike and the handling that translates into. Okay, last but not least on my list of positive things then is the price of this bike. It comes in at just £5,499 this, which I think is great value for a bike that's got the sort of facilities that this got. Okay, it's not top end, it's not top of the range bike obviously, but it does have a TFT with KTM My Ride on it, which is the phone connectivity if you want that. It does have that traction control and ABS, the Bosch stuff. It's not rubbish implementation of that. It's got LED lights all round, adjustable suspension. It doesn't feel like it's built down to a price, yet it is value for money. When you compare it to some of its competitors, I think it's top notch. And out of all the bikes that I can think of that this competes with, things like the BMW G310 GS, even the Honda CRF 250L that I've got, this I think knocks those into a cocked hat. I'd have this over those bikes any day. So there we are. Those are the lessons I've learned through the period that I've had the KTM Duke 390, and I've really enjoyed having it. So thanks again to KTM UK for letting me borrow the bike. My overwhelming thoughts as I kind of take the bike back, what will I be left with thinking? Well, I'm going to be thinking that this is a very fun bike to have. It's got bags of character, lightweight handling, looks good, goes well, and is really great value for money. You can't really say fairer than that, can you? Okay, so there we have it, another video in the can. Hope you enjoyed that, and it's been of some help if you're in the market for a bike like this, and I look forward again to speaking to you soon. Oh, before I go, don't forget, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. It would be great to have you along for the next video. All right, see you next time. Until then, this has been the Mr. and Fly. Cheerio.